Hey guys, this is Vishal from Edureka and I welcome you all to this session on Azure AZ-203. Yes, Microsoft Azure recently launched a set of certifications. And in today's session, we are going to focus on the developer certification that is AZ-203. But before we actually do go ahead and talk about this particular certification in detail, let's take a look at the offerings of today's session. So first and foremost, I would start by talking about why did this transition take place. Moving further, we would understand what's next for MCSE. Then we would understand what are some of the prerequisites that you should fulfill in order to appear for this certification examination. Then we would take a look at certain exam basics. And finally, I would finish things off by talking about the types of questions that you can expect in this certification examination. Having said that, guys, I believe that this agenda is clear to you guys. So let us just move further and get started with the first topic of discussion, that is, why did this transition take place? Now, to understand this, we first need to take a look at some of the statistics that talk about the current market skill gap when you talk about cloud computing. Well, first and foremost, you need to understand this thing that there are somewhere around 50 million people you can expect to be applying for jobs by the end of 2030. I'm talking about the technical jobs only. Moving further, you can expect somewhere around 800 million people who probably are having a job with them right now, but they would be needing to upscale or upskill rather by 2020. Now, this is another interesting stat where employers, there is somewhere around 40% of these employers who are complaining that the companies are having a negative impact on the business. And why is that? Because they have employees who are facing certain skill shortages. And this is an interesting fact as well, which states that in near future you can expect students doing jobs which do not exist. And they say that in somewhere around half a decade, you can expect somewhere around 60% of the students doing jobs that do not exist. Now, it is the case that we have seen in recent times as well. I mean, if you go 10 years, 15 years back, how many people knew what cloud computing was, what big data was? Nobody, right? I mean, not many for sure. So this has changed, and we can see that in near future too, this is going to happen, that we would be seeing people doing jobs that do not exist. So that is why Microsoft Azure thought that if these pointers were so important, what could be done with the stats that we have? So in order to address these statistics, they actually did go ahead and put forth certain pointers. They thought, why not introduce role-based certifications? That meant people could focus on a particular career goal, as in they would have a clear picture, as in this is what we are supposed to do. Instead of having ambiguities, as in picking up too many skills, being confused about the path they should take, a role-based approach would ensure that they would be having a singular specific path, and along the way, if something else is needed, they can pick those things up as well. This ensured that the people who took the certification exam, they had more aligned experience with the career goals they wanted to achieve. And Microsoft Azure also aimed and ensured that the certifications they plan to introduce have more recognition in the market, and those again are more in line with the requirement of the employers. And that is why the certifications, as far as Microsoft Azure is going to introduce or has introduced, you can expect them to be recognized by the industry standards in a much better manner. And the final aim was to ensure that these certifications are simpler when people expect to get Microsoft Azure certified. And the other aim they fulfilled was these certifications were easily discoverable. So if somebody wanted to start fresh, he or she could just go ahead and pick the certifications they wanted to. So they actually did go ahead and consider these many pointers. And based on these pointers, they've actually introduced a set of certifications. Now, these set of certifications, those got introduced last year, but they have come to the helm in recent times. And why is that? Because the certification examinations that you've taken till time before these certifications got introduced would be expiring or have expired already. So let's first take a look at the new certifications that Microsoft Azure has introduced, and then we can talk about the ones that have expired. So the first set of certifications is your Azure AZ-100, which is Azure Administrator Associate certification. Now, again, it is used to make sure that you are skilled in the administrative roles. It has three certifications that are a must, like AZ-100, 101, and a transition exam that is AZ-102. Now, what do I mean by transition examination? if you've taken examination that is AZ-7533, you would know that the certifications have expired. And if you do not know, the last date to take those exams was 31st of December. So if you've already taken this examination, you'd know that you're stuck somewhere. So what do? Well, you can take an examination called as AZ-102, which would help you to transition into the new set of certifications. We would be talking about this in little more detail. Do not worry about that. Similarly, for Azure developer, you have one certification that is AZ-203. Now, yes, AZ-100 series has three. AZ-200 series also had three certifications, but Microsoft Azure decided to scrap that plan and they did go ahead with one certification only, that is AZ-203. And the reason for that was some early exam goers who did take in this examination, the changed examinations, that is AZ-200 series, they said that the exam was very difficult to crack. So thanks to these people, Microsoft Azure did take a look at the certification examinations and they too realized it was on the difficult end. And that is why they decided to scrap that exam. And instead of those set of certifications, they introduced one exam, that is AZ-203, which is very much in line with the developer role and it maps to 7532. So we would be discussing about this examination in detail. Do not worry about that. But before that, we also have one more certification path, that is your AZ-300 series, which is similar to AZ-100. It takes the same path and it maps with 7535, which was meant for Azure Solutions Architect. And this examinations or these certifications would do the same thing as well. If you do take these examinations, you would be a certified Azure Solutions Architect. So these were the new certifications that Microsoft Azure introduced. Now let us move further and try to understand AZ-203 in a little more detail. But before that, I would like to talk about what happens to MCSEs. Now, these are the people who have taken the previous certification examinations, that is your Azure 7532, 533, and 535 for the three roles that we just discussed. So let's see what happens to these people. Now you still need to take the examination. So in case if you've not taken the previous examinations and you were in the process of preparing for 532, 33 and 35, what you people can do is you can actually go ahead and try to map your preparation that you've done with the newer certifications. Now these newer certifications are in line with the previous examinations. What has happened is previous examinations were lengthier and they were not role specific. Now, what Microsoft Azure has done is it has broken down these examinations, that is 32, 33, and 35, into smaller chunks or into multiple certifications, making the exams easier to take. So if you are planning to take new examinations, do not worry. You can just go back and map your previous certification examinations with the recent ones. And if you prepare for the new examinations, you would be more than good to go ahead and get these certifications. If you've already cleared the previous certification examination, as I've already talked in the previous slide, you have those transition examinations. What those examinations do is they let you fill in the gap that you might miss out on if you were planning to take the newer certifications. So those certifications would ensure that your previous certification skills and the newer certification skills stay on one page, and you would get the newer certifications if you take the transition exams as well. So I hope this bit is clear to you people. So let's just move further and talk about what AZ-203 has to offer to you people. So what are some of the prerequisites that you need to fulfill in order to take the certification examination? Now, I won't say that you need to fulfill these prerequisites, but people who belong to these backgrounds or have these skills, they would find themselves in a much better position to take this certification examination. So let's take a look at those pointers as well. For people who have worked on Azure development, who've built various cloud solutions, they might find this examination handy because it holds balance between cloud computing and software development as well. For people who have participated in different phases of development, design, deployment, testing, or even maintenance, they can also opt for this examination. Let me tell you that this examination, once you have the associate level certification, you can actually go ahead and get an expertise in this domain, and you can opt for DevOps certification as well, where you would be having combined skills of both developers and administrators. For people who have partnered with solution architects, who have DBA skills, cloud administrator skills, who know how clients work and stuff like that. So if you have knowledge on these platforms, again, you are a good candidate for this role. And you should be good at developing apps and services, which is very important when you talk about the development role. And the fact that you're going for an Azure certification, you should be able to do that using Azure tools. So if you have these skills, you would be required to prepare very less and you can actually go ahead and take this exam right away. So what are the exam basics that you should know before you take this examination? Now here we would be discussing certain nitty-gritties that surround the exam takers or the questions that exam takers have. So what is the duration of this examination? Well, it roughly spans between 120 or rather 150 to 180 minutes. Yes, so that is somewhere around 3 hours in total. The time might vary because Microsoft Azure is very profound when it comes to justifying the rules for the certification examination. You won't be aware about the exact time and the number of questions that you can expect. So there is no certainty or no confirmation as in, okay, these are the exact minutes that you should be taking this examination, but it should be somewhere in the range of 3 hours. The number of questions that you can expect in this certification examination, as I've already told you, it's not confirmed as in what is the exact number, but it is somewhere around 45 to 60 questions. Maybe 5 plus or 5 less is what you can expect. The previous certification were available in English, Spanish, Chinese, French, German, Russian, Japanese, etc. But the newer exams, those are unfortunately available only in English. I'm saying that it is unfortunate because there might be people who want to take this examination in their own language or the language that is native to them. But for now, it's only English. And the reason I guess behind that is these certifications are very new. Maybe it might take a while for Microsoft Azure to actually go ahead and incorporate other languages as well. And if that happens, probably you would be able to take your examinations in those languages as well. But for now, it's primarily English. How much marks should you score? Now, there are no specific set of percentage that you can expect. As in, okay, if you clear the exam with 70%, you would get the Azure certification. That is not how it works here. You are ranked based on the points you scored, and the cutoff is 700 points. Now, these points can be given to you in a number of ways. I mean, there is no particular scheme, as in, if you answer a smaller question, you might get 1 mark. Bigger question might give you 2 marks. It does not work like that. Microsoft Azure uses their own method or algorithm to test you, and that is why not 70%. That is what I'm saying that you should not do. 700 points is what you're supposed to score. And again, to do that, you'd have to go through the entire course. You cannot just go ahead and neglect certain pointers in the agenda that you set for your examination. So what is the exam fees? Well, it varies. When I say varies, it depends upon the currencies which your country supports or which Microsoft Azure supports. So if you are taking an examination from some country that has a different currency than dollars, so your fees might vary from what the stipulated dollars amount is. Once we visit the Microsoft Azure official website, we would be discussing this part a little more. Meanwhile, you just bear with me and let's just move further. So what are the topics that you can expect in the examination? Now, if you take a look at the previous certifications, the developer one, that is the 7500 series which we had, and the ones that were revamped, that is the 200 series, both had different patterns. Your first 7500 series, it basically had somewhere around 8 to 10 modules in the total examination. So that meant that you had to go through a lot of modules. So Microsoft Azure did go ahead and simplify it with 200 and 201, and they made sure that there were only 4 modules per exam. But then, as I've already told you, these exams were still very complicated. So Microsoft Azure did go ahead and combine it into one exam, and they omitted certain tougher parts and brought in more takeable exam. And this time we have somewhere around 6 modules. So what are those modules? You would be required to develop Azure Infrastructure as Service Compute Solutions. It has somewhere around 10 to 15% of weightage. Develop Azure PaaS Compute Solutions, 20 to 25% weightage. Develop Azure for Storage, or develop for Azure Storage. That means actually go ahead and develop Azure Storage Services. When I say storage services, certain features that you need to work on, tables and stuff like that. Do not worry, I would be talking about these pointers in little more detail once we visit their official website. The other 3 modules are implementing your Azure security, monitoring, troubleshooting, and optimizing Azure solutions. And you should be able to connect, consume to Azure services and to third-party services that are there. Now, these domains have weightages like 15, 20, or 25%. Now, again, all these distributions are very neck to neck, so you cannot omit any particular domain if you wish to clear this certification examination. So make note of that as well. So let's just move further and take a look at the types of questions or the changes in the questions that Microsoft Azure has introduced to its newer certifications. So no sooner you enter the examination or get started with the exam, it would ask you how much experience do you have with Azure development. It gives you three options, that is whether you are a beginner, a medium level employee, or you are an expert when it comes to Azure development. Now, do not mistake this question to the fact that based on your input, the difficulty level would change. No, that is not what it is for. The only reason Microsoft Azure is doing this is because they want to understand at what juncture in your career are you planning to take this examination, just for their survey sake. So do not misinterpret this question. So moving further, I've already mentioned that Microsoft Azure has changed the way the questions were asked. Let's try to understand what were the changes that you can expect or what has changed. Now, previously, if you've attended my previous sessions on Azure 7500 series, you'd know that what Microsoft Azure used to do was back then they used to ask MCQs, they used to ask case studies and put in certain development questions as well. But the way these new exams work is very different. Now, Microsoft Azure is trying to move away from multiple choice questions. This is something which is not new. Now, they've been trying to do this for a very long time. The reason they're trying to do this is they feel that MCQs restrict your answers to particular choices. Now, if you take a look at certain examination or certain question being asked to you, Azure ensures or any cloud platform ensures that you can take multiple approaches to reach that solution. So Microsoft Azure is interested in understanding what approach you take and how do you solve that particular question. So that is why it has decided to move away from the MCQs. So what are the changes that you've expected or you can expect in these questions that are being asked in the certification examination? You can expect more questions that are based on drag and drop options. Case studies again is very important. It was there in previous certification examinations as well, and it still exists because it tests you on your overall skill base and you are not stuck with one particular approach. Here you'd be given a case study where you'd be given a particular problem where you'd be given multiple questions based on which you can predict the answer for these questions. There would be questions that talk about putting things in order where you'd be given multiple chunks of problems which you'd be expected to put in a particular order or take in a particular approach to come to a solution. And performance testing. Now, case studies, I said that there would be certain case studies. Performance testing throws in multiple case studies or problem statements at you. These problem statements are not ordered in such a way that those are interdependent on each other. I mean, if you miss out on first case study, you can move further and take a look at the second one also. But these exams ensure that you have thorough understanding of the concept, and that is why these tests or these questions test you on those level as well. So these are some of the questions that you can expect in this examination. Now let me quickly just switch into the Microsoft Azure official website and let's talk about these concepts in little more detail. So folks, what I've done is I've actually gone ahead and I've switched into the Microsoft Azure's website. This is the page for the Azure AZ-203 certification or the exam details. Now, the pointers that you see on this page, I've talked about most of those pointers already. To bring to your notice, you can see the languages in which you can take this exam is only English, like we discussed, audiences, IT professionals, and to be more precise, developers. The name of the certification is Developing Solutions for Microsoft Azure. Developing, that means the development part. As you can see, this is the fees, which is $165. Now, again, as I've already mentioned, the fees might vary based on the region you're planning to take the exam from. To give you an example, if I click on this icon, it would give me options. So if I select United Kingdom, the fees goes into Great Britain pound. It's 113 GBP, as you can see. And if you're from some other region, you probably can just go ahead and take a look at the prices that are there. I mean, I believe there are quite a few options here. If you scroll up, Ireland, and the fact that I am recording this session from India, let's take a look at the prices as well. It is an equivalent of the fees. I mean, what Microsoft Azure does is it tries to keep a balance between the prices of different locations. And that is why we see 4,800 INR, which is a valid fees. So yeah, this is how the fee structure works. If you move further and take a look at the other pointers, skills measured, we've talked about these in general. Now these are the pointers that were there in the presentation as well. If you need a detailed explanation, you can click on these icons and probably you have all the details. Now develop Azure infrastructure as a service. That means it is the IaaS service which they are talking about, IaaS, and it has a weightage of 10 to 15%. What this particular domain expects you to do is mostly work on VMs, that is, provision them, create ARM templates, configure your disk encryption, and stuff like that. Now, again, there are certain sub modules in it as well, which talk about containerization and stuff like that. Now, Kubernetes is something that has been trending in the market for a very long time, and people are normally preferring Kubernetes these days. Containerization is something that is going to affect the current technological world, and that is why Microsoft Azure has actually gone ahead and accommodated some part of containerization as well. So you would be expected to prepare on those terms as well. Next, you have Azure PaaS services, where you'd be working on creating applications for mobile, for your web, and stuff like that. So yes, do visit this website and get the detailed information about the subtopics that you're going to cover. As I've already told you, there are details for everything that you'd want to know, whether it's Azure storage that you're going to develop. Here you'd be working on tables and stuff like that. If you talk about implementing Azure security, again, IAM and access policies is something that you'd be working on. You would be working on some part of administration as well, where you'd be monitoring and troubleshooting and optimizing certain Azure solutions. And then finally, you should know how to connect to Azure applications and also to third-party applications as well. So this is what the final session focuses on, or the final module focuses on. So if you do have any questions, as in if I might have missed out on any, you might just come here and visit this website and get the complete know-how. But I'm pretty sure that I've touched upon most of the pointers or almost all the pointers that concern this examination. So still, if there is something that you feel that I might have missed out on, you might just visit this website and take a look at these pointers as well. Again, people normally prefer to study on their own, many of those. And if you are one of those, you can refer Microsoft Azure resources. If you talk about YouTube and other resources, YouTube does not have that much content when you talk about Microsoft Azure. For AWS, it is in abundance, but Azure, it is comparatively lesser. So you would might want to just stick to the Azure website or their community or documentation for preparing for this particular examination. Yes, there are some official guides as well, which you can refer. Probably if you study on your own for like 6, 7 months or maybe 5 months properly, even if you start from the very scratch, you should be in a state to take this examination. If you want to know how to prepare for this particular examination, do not worry. I would be coming up with a video that talks about that as well. If you are somebody who likes planned or maybe structured training, this website or this organization might not be a bad option to go for. No matter where you're based or in which global part you're based, you can actually avail their services because they have online courses which are instructor led, and you have all the recordings that are made available to you. So you can actually go ahead and take full use or bring this training to your full use when it comes to cracking your certification examination. All the details are there on this page, whether you talk about the fees. Now, this fees is very real time and it changes. What do I mean by real time? The fact that there are many competitions that Edureka contests every now and then. If you stay tuned on their websites, on their forums, on their Facebook and Instagram channels, probably you can participate in those and you might get more discount. And the amount that you see here might actually go down for you or might go down further. Apart from that, the course which you see here is very much in line with the topics that we talked about. Almost everything that we talked about in this video or we discussed using the Azure official page, you can see that every topic is covered in this certification examination or the training which Edureka has to offer to you. Apart from that, if you need other details as in how good are their courses and stuff like that, you can go through the testimonies. Plus, these are some of the important features that they have to offer. Now, you would be having instructor-led sessions. There would be real-life case studies, assignments, lifetime access to the resources that are made available to you. They have LMS, which stores in all the data or keeps a copy of all the activities that you do and the courses that you've taken, the documentation and stuff like that, even the videos. You have 24/7 support, and this support is very lively and very active. No matter when you throw in the query, people would get back to you right away. Certification, again, yes, once you are done with the complete course, you would be given a certification by Edureka as well, which is recognized at many places across the globe. So yes, definitely you can do that. So yep, if you need any more information, you can visit this page as well. As far as this particular session goes, I wanted to touch up upon AZ-203, and I believe I've talked about most of the pointers that might concern this certification exam. So I'm just going to go ahead and rest this session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!